He walked into that conference room on the 34th floor of One Allen Center in Houston, Texas. He carried the certainty of a man who had run the numbers. He was satisfied with the results. I watched him cross the threshold at 9:14 on a Friday morning in February 2025. I want to tell you what I saw. I have been a financial analyst. I know how to read a room the way other people read faces. His attorney, David Crane of Crane and Whitmore, arrived 7 minutes earlier. He was 53 years old, charging $340 an hour. He was known in Houston family law for intact business asset settlements. Marcus sat beside him. He had a leather portfolio he had not opened. He did not think he was going to need it. I sat across from him with Renee Webb of Webb and Associates. She was 44, with 18 years in high-asset divorce proceedings. She was the most precise person I have ever worked with. To my right, Marcus Thornton,
68.
a Houston CPA. He worked with my father for 25 years. He witnessed the document that was going to change everything in approximately 40 minutes. Marcus, my husband, did not look at me when he sat down. He had not looked at me directly since September, when he filed. He looked like a man who had made peace with a decision. He was waiting for paperwork. He did not know about the equity agreement. He did not know. I knew he did not know. What he also did not know is that I knew he had known since 2019. He had made a calculation. This entire proceeding was the answer to a bet he placed 6 years ago. He placed it on a woman he decided to stop seeing. He lost that bet at 2:47 p.m. Let me go back and tell you how we got here. But first, before I continue, tell me where you are and what time it is. I have been keeping track of where this story travels. Leave it in the comments. I will read it. Then, let me tell you what happened next. My name is Diana Reese. I am 46 years old, born in 1979 in Houston, Texas. I have a CPA named Robert Langford and a mathematics teacher named Catherine. I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 2001 with a degree in corporate finance. I spent 6 years as a senior financial analyst at a private equity firm in Dallas. I was the person who catches the thing everyone else walked past. I met Marcus Reese in 2007. He was 33. I was 28. He had a contractor's license and a straining commercial lending relationship. He had the specific ambition of a man who knew exactly what he wanted to build. He had not yet found the capital to start. I had the analytical background and the professional network. My father spent 25 years watching people make financial decisions. Enough of them were catastrophically wrong to develop precise opinions about documentation. My father's name was Robert Langford. He had 31 years as a CPA. In 3 decades of practice, he watched 4 separate clients lose significant assets in divorce. They had not understood the documents governing their own financial interests. He talked about it every year at dinner. He reviewed every contract I signed. He treated financial literacy the way other fathers treated driving lessons. It was a necessity, not a courtesy. In the spring of 2008, Marcus needed $750,000 to incorporate Reese Commercial Development. My father wrote the check. Before the ink dried, he spread a document across the kitchen table on Kirby Drive. It was an equity agreement prepared by his attorney, clean and specific. 38% of Reese Commercial Development's total equity was registered in Diana Langford, Reese's name, in perpetuity. It was subject to buyout at fair market value. Marcus signed. At the time, Reese Commercial Development was a concept and a credit line. 38% of something worth approximately nothing did not feel significant. After Marcus signed, my father did something I have thought about many times since. He set his reading glasses on the document, not beside it, on it. It was a small, precise gesture. He made it without thinking, the way you mark a place you intend to return to. Then he folded the document closed, glasses still on top. He looked at me. He said 7 words. Deanna, don't let anyone take what's yours. He picked up his glasses. He put them in his shirt pocket. He stood. I did not know, in 2008, what those words were preparing me for. I know now. 2008. Incorporation. Seed capital, $750,000. Company valuation, approximately 0. 2015. 11 active commercial contracts. Houston metro area. Valuation, $21 million. 2020. 19 active contracts. Primary portfolio established. Valuation, $38 million. 2023. Independent appraisal. Valuation, $64 million. February 2025. My 38% equity stake, registered in my name since 2008, never bought out, $24.3 million. Marcus had never once offered to buy it out. I had never asked. For 17 years, the equity agreement sat in a separate file my father maintained at a separate address. It was in a location he had told only Marcus Thornton. He gave a single instruction: make sure Diana finds it when she needs it. The first wave. Marcus Reese is a man who is publicly generous and privately accounting. For 16 years, I managed the household on Bayou Boulevard. I handled the social calendar, the school schedules, and the client hospitality. This kept his business relationships functioning. He built a company with a visibility I had largely surrendered. I did this as a matter of practical arrangement. He was not cruel. He was simply inattentive. He categorized a person as support infrastructure rather than a participant. He received the credit. I made the credit possible. I told myself this was acceptable for a long time. The second wave. Beginning 22 months before he filed for divorce, Marcus restructured Reese Commercial Development's asset profile. He moved 2 real estate holdings into a Delaware subsidiary. It was established in his business partner's firm's name. He restructured management fees on 3 active projects through a Nevada consulting entity. He reduced the apparent book value of the company's primary commercial asset. He reclassified maintenance liabilities. This reduced its stated value by $4.2 million on paper. Every move was systematic. Every amount was small enough to look routine. He spent 22 months of financial preparation before he ever said the word divorce in front of me. The third wave. September 12th, 2024, Marcus filed. That evening, he found me at my desk reviewing financial documents. He did not find this unusual. He said what he had come to say in the doorway, before I had the petition in my hand. He spoke with the timing of a man delivering a final verdict. He decided I would not contest it. You haven't held a real job in 16 years, Diana. You have no idea what this company is worth. He said it on a Thursday. He filed on a Friday. He did not know I had been tracking the company's quarterly valuation for 3 years. I had a current independent appraisal in the folder in my desk drawer. I could recite its net asset value, pending contract pipeline, and weighted debt-to-equity ratio from memory. He also did not know, yet, that I had found the 2019 emails. But I am getting ahead of myself. September 14th, 2024, a Saturday, 6:47 p.m. I came home from Emma's cross-country meet. She placed 3rd in the regional invitational. I found a certified envelope on the kitchen island. Marcus's attorney's return address was in the upper left corner. I set my keys on the counter. I placed my hand flat on the envelope without picking it up. I could feel through the paper that it was multiple pages. I put the kettle on. I watched it come to temperature. I poured the water. I sat at the kitchen counter. I opened the envelope with the letter opener from the drawer to the right of the stove. My father's reading glasses were in that drawer. They had been there for 2 years, since he died in November 2022. I had not been able to make myself move them. I picked them up. I held them over the petition for divorce for a moment. I did not use them. I just held them. I felt as though he might read it himself if I kept still enough. Then I put them back. I picked up my phone. I called Marcus Thornton. He answered on the third ring. He filed. I said, when? September 12th. A longer pause. Deanna, have you looked at the equity agreement recently? Tell me what it's worth, I said. 2 seconds of silence. Then, at the most recent independent valuation, $24.3 million. I stood at the kitchen counter, and I held that number. $24.3 million, registered in my name, in a document signed at a kitchen table in 2008. Marcus had told me I had no idea what it was worth. I need Renee's number, I said. I know, Marcus Thornton said. I have had it ready since October. I spent 5 months preparing. The preparation is the revenge, not the conference room. The conference room was only the delivery. Renee Webb met with me 4 days after Marcus filed. She spent the first 2 hours identifying every way the case could go wrong. Then, she said what could go right. She retained a forensic accountant named Gary Solis. He was 51 years old, with 15 years of high-asset divorce financial investigation. He produced a 122-page report on Marcus's 22 months of asset restructuring, the Delaware subsidiary, the Nevada consulting entity, the Greenway Commons reclassification. He tracked transfer dates, amounts, and the specific instruments used. I did not tell Marcus what I knew. For 5 months, I sat at the same kitchen table on Bayou Boulevard. I ate dinner in the same house as a man who believed he had already won. I answered his questions about Emma's schedule. I signed school forms. I attended 3 of his business dinners. Withdrawing would have altered his behavior. I needed his behavior to remain exactly what it was. He thought my silence was grief. November. Emma was at a sleepover. I had come from a meeting with Gary Solis. We reviewed the full scope of the asset transfers. I drove home and did not go inside for 11 minutes. I sat in the car in the dark. I thought about 16 years of making the credit possible while someone else received it. Then I went inside. I sat on the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet under the sink. I held the equity agreement in one hand and my father's reading glasses in the other. He was not in the room. But the thing he had built was. I held both for a long time. The document he made sure I would have. The glasses he left in a drawer, precisely where I would need to find them. 2 objects, 17 years apart. The same intention running through both of them. After a while, I stopped crying. It was not better. It was something colder and more functional than better. I folded the equity agreement back into its envelope. I put the reading glasses in the pocket of my cardigan. I stood up. I went to my desk. I opened the folder. I dated the entry, November 14th, 2024. I closed the folder. I did not cry after that night. I did not need to. In December 2024, 2 months into the discovery process, Gary Solis called me on a Tuesday evening. He had found something beyond the asset transfers. In 2019, Marcus had consulted his corporate attorney, a man named Howard Finch at a firm on Post Oak Lane. He asked whether the equity position registered in my name could be quietly extinguished. He wanted this done before the company's next growth cycle. The exchange was documented in a series of emails. They were recovered through the business discovery subpoena. There were 3 years of Marcus's archived corporate correspondence. Gary spent 6 weeks reading 1,400 pages. He read me the relevant section over the phone. Howard Finch's response to Marcus's inquiry was dated March 14th, 2019. Mrs. Reese has not exercised any shareholder rights in 11 years. She has made no documented inquiry into the stake's current value. There is no indication she is tracking the position. If you attempt a buyout now, you risk alerting her to the current valuation. You potentially trigger a renegotiation at a premium we would prefer to avoid. My recommendation, leave it undisturbed. If she is unaware, she will not act. Marcus's reply was 3 words, Agreed. Leave it. I held the phone after Gary finished reading. He had not forgotten. This is the thing I need you to understand, because it changes the shape of everything that followed. Marcus Reese did not forget about the equity agreement. He had known about it in 2019. He hired a lawyer to evaluate it, reviewed the options, and made a calculation. The calculation was this: that the woman sitting across the kitchen table from him had stopped paying attention to what was hers. She had surrendered it in the same quiet way she had surrendered most things. Gradually, without announcement, in the space of years. It looked like trust but functioned like erasure. He bet his entire asset restructuring strategy on that calculation. He had been wrong since 2008. He simply did not know it yet. Gary, I said, add it to the report. A pause. It's already in the report, he said. Section 4, page 61. I closed my eyes. My father had put 38% of a company into a document in 2008. He told me not to let anyone take what was mine. The man who had that document evaluated 6 years later had decided I was not paying attention. He had filed for divorce with a settlement offer that assumed I was not paying attention. He stood in my doorway and told me I had no idea what his company was worth. He assumed I was not paying attention. I had been paying attention since 2008, every quarter, every valuation cycle, every year. He walked into that conference room in February 2025, carrying the certainty of a man whose attorney had told him, in writing, that his wife was unaware of what she owned. He had been living inside that certainty for 6 years. He had built his entire divorce strategy on top of it. What he did not know, what he would not know until Renee slid a document across a mahogany table, was that the calculation he made in 2019 was the most expensive decision he had ever made. I want to tell you something about that morning before I describe the conference room. Marcus had told his business partner, Vanessa Lowe, to be at 1 Allen Center at 10 a.m. He told her the settlement would be signed by noon. They would have lunch at Brennan's to celebrate. He had been promising her for 3 months that after the settlement was finalized, she would be running the company with him. They would be equal partners. He made this promise the same way Howard Finch gave him advice in 2019. He spoke in words, without paper, assuming words were enough. Vanessa Lowe would be in the lobby cafe on the ground floor during the entire mediation. Waiting. I knew she was there. Marcus did not know I knew. I also knew about Howard Finch's 2019 memo. Marcus did not know I knew that either. The asymmetry in that room was not the equity agreement alone. It was 17 years of a woman who had been told she was not paying attention, who had been paying attention the entire time. David Cranes presented Marcus's settlement proposal at 9:20. He spoke with the efficiency of a man who believes the presentation is a courtesy. The house on Bayou Boulevard, $1.4 million. Monthly spousal support for 2 years at $8,500. A lump sum of $350,000. Reese Commercial Development was presented as Marcus's separate business asset. It was built from his own professional effort, not subject to equitable distribution. He said the word separate 4 times in 7 minutes. Renee let him finish. She set her pen down parallel to the folder's edge. She opened her portfolio, the equity agreement first. It was the original 2008 notarized document. 38% of Reese Commercial Development registered in Diana Langford Reese's name. Behind it, Gary Solis's report. 122 pages. The Delaware subsidiary, the Nevada entity, the Greenway Commons reclassification. And on page 61, Howard Finch's March 2019 memo. Marcus's 3-word reply, agreed, leave it. Behind that, the February 2025 independent valuation. $64 million. 38%, $24.3 million. I watched Marcus pick up the equity agreement. I watched him read the first page, the second, His hand went still on the third. I watched him reach page 61. I want to describe what happened to his face at that moment. There were two separate recognitions. They arrived one after the other like two waves. The first was the equity agreement, the look of a man discovering a variable his model had not included. The second, when he reached page 61, was something different. It was the look of a man who understood, fully and finally, that the person across the table had known about the 2019 memo. She had known about it for months. She had sat at the same kitchen table. She answered his questions about Emma's schedule, attended 3 of his business dinners, and said nothing. Not because she didn't know, because she was waiting. He looked up at me. I looked back. "You knew," he said. It was not a question. "Since December," I said, page 61. The room was quiet for a very long time. David Crane asked for a recess. They took 45 minutes. At 2:47 p.m., Marcus Reese signed the settlement agreement. Buyout of 38% equity stake at current fair market value. $24,300,000. Penalty for documented fraudulent concealment of marital assets. $3,800,000. Primary residence on Bayou Boulevard, retained by Diana. $1,400,000. Emma's educational expenses. Full coverage through graduate school. Legal fees, borne by Marcus, $186,000. Total, $29,700,000. Vanessa Lowe had been in the Lab Cafe since 9:45. She left at 3:30. It had become apparent that Marcus was not coming down for Brennan's. He left that conference room at 2:47 p.m. I want to tell you what it cost him after that. The credit review, the frozen contracts, the number that arrived by December. Before I do, subscribe and hit the like. Not because fewer than 4% of people do. Because what came after the settlement is the part most people are not expecting. And I am not finished. To fund the equity buyout, Marcus was required to secure $24.3 million in financing. This was secured against Reese Commercial Development's asset portfolio. This required disclosure to First National Commercial Capital. They held 14 of the company's property loans with a combined balance of $38.6 million. First National's Credit Review Committee received Gary Solis's report as part of the financing disclosure. This included page 61. They issued a formal credit hold on March 19, 2025. 4 active development projects were frozen. Meridian Tower in Sugar Land had a contract value of $18.2 million. It entered technical default on day 31. A capital partner was brought in to stabilize. 25% of the equity was surrendered. Vanessa Lowe resigned on March 31, 2025. She filed a civil claim against Marcus in April, which settled in June for an undisclosed amount. 2 client contracts declined to renew in June. They had a combined forward value of $11.2 million. Reese Commercial Development's independent valuation in December 2025 dropped to $31 million. Marcus Reese net position change from September 2024 to December 2025 was approximately negative $46 million. In 2019, Howard Finch told Marcus that attempting a buyout would risk alerting me to the valuation. He was right about the risk. He was wrong about the direction. Doing nothing did not protect Marcus from the equity clause. It guaranteed that the equity clause would arrive at the worst possible moment. It came with the worst possible documentation surrounding it in a conference room Marcus believed he controlled. The calculation Marcus made in 2019 cost him, by December 2025, $46 million. My father's reading glasses cost approximately $12. In April, 3 weeks after the credit hold was issued, Marcus Thornton called me. He had just come from a meeting with Renee about the disbursement timeline. He said, without preamble, "Deanna, I want to tell you what your father said to me the last year of his life. I waited. He said, Marcus, if something happens to this marriage, I need to know that equity agreement is findable by Diana and nobody else. He moved the original to a separate file. He kept it at a different address. He told me the location. He made me write it down. A pause. He was watching something he couldn't name yet. He just knew to be ready. My father died in November 2022. He never knew what was coming. He only knew that something needed protecting. He protected it the way he protected everything. Methodically, without drama, with a precision that outlasted him by years. He couldn't fix what was coming, Marcus Thornton said. He could only make sure that when it arrived, you had everything you needed to face it. I thought about my father setting his reading glasses on a document in 2008. He was marking a place he intended his daughter to return to. I thought about the glasses in a kitchen drawer for 2 years after he died. They were waiting at exactly the address he had left them. He had prepared 2 things, the document and the reminder of the document. Both were in the right place at the right time. Both were exactly as he had left them. Marcus Reese called on a Saturday in April. I was at my desk reviewing the investment account Marcus Thornton had helped me establish. Diana, he said. Marcus. A long pause. The credit hold. It was not a complaint. It was a weather report. I know, I said. Another pause. You knew about the 2019 memo. December, I said. Gary found it in the discovery documents, page 61. Silence. It was the specific silence of a man whose model has encountered the variable he excluded. I told Howard not to touch it, he said, finally. I told him if she doesn't know, she won't act. I know what you told him, I said. I read it 3 times. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice had something in it I had not heard before. It was not remorse exactly. It was the flat recognition of a person who has seen fully the size of what they miscalculated. I didn't think you were paying attention, he said. I know you didn't, I said. That was the calculation. It was wrong. It was wrong since 2008, I said. You just didn't know it yet. A long pause. What you said to me in September, he said, in the study, before I filed. I meant it as Marcus, I said. You meant it as a final assessment of a woman you had evaluated in 2019. You decided she had forgotten what she owned. I know exactly what you meant. You were right that I hadn't held a formal position in 16 years. You were wrong about everything else. He didn't say anything. How is Emma? I said. She asked me last week, he said slowly, whether I had known about the agreement. Whether I forgot or whether I decided you wouldn't use it. What did you tell her? A very long pause. It was the longest of the call. I told her the truth, he said, that I had known since 2019, that I had decided she wasn't paying attention. Good, I said. That was honest. We ended the call not with warmth, but without what I had been carrying since September either. It is something that might become, with time and patience, something that functions. Shared children require that. My father was a CPA for 31 years. He died at 67 from a cardiac condition. He managed it with the same methodical patience he brought to quarterly filings. He attended every appointment, adjusted every variable, and never made a fuss. He had watched 4 separate times. What happens to the person who doesn't understand the documents governing their own financial interests? He reviewed every contract I ever signed. He drafted an equity agreement in 2008 because he had seen the alternative too many times to leave it to chance. He could not have told me when I would need it. He made sure I had it anyway. In June 2025, I established the Robert Langford Financial Literacy Endowment at the University of Houston's Bauer College of Business. It was funded by the settlement proceeds. It provides a curriculum in personal financial literacy with a specific module on equity rights and documentation standards. It teaches what you own in a marriage and a business, before you need to prove it. It was named for the man who sat at a kitchen table in 2008 and said 7 words. It was not named for the settlement that funded it, nor the company that generated it. It honors the man who spent 31 years making sure that the people he loved would not arrive at a crucial moment without the document they needed. Emma came home for the 4th of July weekend. It was her first time back since her freshman year at Rice ended. She is 18 years old, studying finance and business analytics. Her grandfather Robert would have received this news with specific satisfaction. He loved being right about something for a long time. She walked through the house on Bayou Boulevard. She looked at things the way you look at a familiar place when you are deciding whether it is still what you knew. She stopped in the kitchen. On the wall, in a single frame, the equity agreement, original, behind glass. And beside it, suspended by a small mount, my father's reading glasses. It is not a shrine. It is not a memorial. It is a record. 2 objects from 2 ends of 17 years are finally in the same place. She stood in front of the frame for a long time. The reading glasses are the ones he wore at the kitchen table in 2008. They are the ones I carried in my pocket through November. They lived in a drawer for 2 years, precisely where I needed to find them. They are in the frame beside the equity agreement now, the document he made, and the thing he always used to read it with. Both are where they belong. Both are still doing their work. Emma turned away from the frame and looked at me. He said 7 words. She said, "What were they exactly?" I have thought those words thousands of times. I thought them in the car on Kirby Drive in 2008. I thought them in the parking garage on Preston Road in October. I thought them on the kitchen floor in November. I thought them in the conference room in February, watching Marcus's face as he reached page 61. But I have never said them out loud. Not once. Not to anyone. I said them now, at the kitchen table, to my daughter. Don't let anyone take what's yours. Emma held them for a moment. She has her grandfather's way of receiving information. She does not rush to respond. She turns it over first. She makes sure she understands what she has before she decides what to do with it. Then she looked at the frame on the wall, the equity agreement and the reading glasses, the document and the thing he used to read it with. It represents 17 years in a single frame. "Do you think he knew?" she said quietly. "Marcus, do you think he actually forgot, or do you think he decided you wouldn't use it?" I looked at the frame. The glasses my father had set on a document in 2008 marked a place he intended someone to return to. The document had waited in a separate file at a separate address for 17 years. It stayed exactly where he had left it, for exactly the moment it was needed. I did not answer. I did not need to. "One last thing before you leave. Has someone made a calculation about you? Decided you were not tracking what you owned, what you had built, or what was registered in your name? Have they written a strategy on top of that assumption? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story found you when you needed it, the subscribe button and the like are how it finds someone else the same way. That is all. The document is already